Welcome to the first episode of Triple C and Creatures of West Virginia podcast. We are your hosts, Cambria,
Camryn,
and Connor.
We invite all believers, non-believers, and skeptics to join us on this expedition into uncovering the truth of the mysterious creatures that lurk in the mountains and forests of wild and wonderful West Virginia. In this episode, we will dive into a creature well known and allegedly seen by many, Bigfoot. Our research for this episode brought us to Sutton, West Virginia. In this quaint little town right off of Exit 67 on Interstate 79 lies not one, but two cryptid-based museums. We checked out the Bigfoot Museum, which brings people from all over who travel the interstate. From casted footprints to eyewitness accounts, the museum encompassed all aspects of this mysterious creature. Before we indulge into the experience of the museum, I think it's important we unravel the history of Bigfoot and see how this tall, hairy humanoid became one of the most infamous creatures in the world.
There have been various myths of a wild man from all over the world, but for the U.S., Bigfoot only came to the spotlight in 1958. A reader of the Humboldt Times sent a letter regarding loggers in Northern California who discovered inexplicably large footprints. Andrew Gonzoli, a journalist of this newspaper, highlighted it saying, "Maybe we have a relative of the abominable snowman of the Himalayas," in the column alongside his letter. Gonzoli simply thought the footprints made a good Sunday morning story. However, this sparked fascination amongst many of the readers. Gonzoli himself and fellow journalist Betty Allen continued to post articles about the footprints as a follow-up to the original piece, the name the loggers had given to the creature that left the tracks, Bigfoot.
Almost a decade later, in 1967, two former rodeo men from Washington shot footage off the banks of Bluff Creek in Northern California with a 16mm camera. The footage would later become known as the Patterson-Gimlin film. In this infamous video, Bigfoot is seen walking for less than a minute. It was this footage where frame 352, the shot where the creature looks at the camera, became the universal icon and symbol for Bigfoot. However, Bigfoot was a she and her name was Patty. Over 50 years later, with advancements in technology and costumes, the Patterson-Gimlin film yet has to be debunked, and frame 352 is still how Bigfoot is represented and portrayed to this day.
Over time, Bigfoot became a character in magazines and paperback novels, as well as had pseudo-documentaries investigating his existence and movies made. At times, he was portrayed as a primal, dangerous creature out of the past who lurked in the wilderness, even being portrayed as a villain in projects such as Primal Rage and Creature from Black Lake. Popularly, Bigfoot is portrayed as an environmentalism symbol to preserve wilderness. The 1987 movie Harry and the Hendersons was a prime example of this, as he was misunderstood and actually a friendly creature who needed protection. Through these fictional representations, Bigfoot became an icon of enchantment and endangerment. One thing has never changed, and that is Bigfoot's existence is still desired to be proven today.
At the Bigfoot Museum in Flatwoods, West Virginia, there were several specimens of Bigfoot's existence, including hair samples and various footprint molds ranging in size. There were many depictions of Bigfoot through pictures, art, and statues throughout the museum. One cool thing the museum had was a binder full of eyewitness accounts. Guests at the museum could tell their personal stories, and the museum would put them in a binder for other guests to read through. One eyewitness encounter took place in Boone County, West Virginia from May 2014 to March 2015. Connor dramatically reads the eyewitness description.
I just seen the back of it. Buttock and back legs. It looked like muscle on top of muscle. It had reddish-brown hair from what I could tell and maybe a little over 7 feet tall. It looked like it had no neck, massive shoulders, and when it ran, its gait was huge. Looked like a man in shape, but it also looked like it could rip the roof of a car if it wanted to. Massively strong looking. 4 years ago, across from my house, just after 4 a.m., 2 dogs were barking. I woke up, shined my flashlight, and screamed, "Shut up!" That's when I'd seen a large, hairy, muscular figure, muscle on top of muscle. It looked like it bolted up the mountain. It could be about 7 feet or tall, or more. My children seen it the spring before I seen it, but me and a pastor friend just laughed at our kids. They were playing Spotlight and seen it in the pines. Then I seen it in the next year in March. I even got one decent pic of a footprint later on that morning when it became daylight. Ever since then, from time to time, we hear what they would call wood knocks and screams like howler monkeys that you hear on a wildlife show. I've heard them before, but I thought it was a bird imitating something. I don't think there is any local animal that could do this.
Andrew Smith, owner of the Flatwoods Monster Museum, sat with us to discuss the importance of Bigfoot.
Best explanation for Bigfoot that really anybody has been able to give has been a misidentification of a bear. And like, I'm not an outdoorsman at all. I just have lived in rural West Virginia my whole life, but I in fact, for lunch I ate deer. I've never killed a deer in my life. A friend of mine gives me deer, so I eat it. But I've never killed an animal, never spent hours on a tree stand, never hunted bear. I hate touching fish. I love fish. I'll eat fish. I don't touch them. But I have had 2 in the wild encounters with black bear in my life. Not for 1 second did I ever think that's a Bigfoot. As soon as I saw them, that's a bear. And when you have these testimonies of some folks I've met personally, I've gotten to know personally, that have literally spent every hunting season that they can in the woods hunting their whole lives, and then they encounter something, either a Bigfoot or Bigfoot-like, I do not believe that they are misidentifying a bear.
That is what I call a Bigfoot overload. I'm not sure where you guys stand on believing in Bigfoot, but for me, I've always been one. I grew up in a densely forested area where anything could have been lurking within. I watched the shows with my dad, and finding Bigfoot even recorded an episode 30 minutes away from my hometown. There are even 3 wooden carved trophies at my house I received from being a 3-time Bigfoot calling champion.
You're a Bigfoot calling champion?
Yeah, so actually, my family and I went to a restaurant almost 7 years ago. It was my mom's idea because she had heard of the Bigfoot calling contest they were hosting. Once my dad heard, he never stopped talking about how he was going to win, but would only do it if I signed up. The only viable option was to say yes for 1, to prove him wrong, and 2, to get him to shut up. So pretty much how it worked is you got called up and are required to do 4 things: 3 Bigfoot calls, a mating, a warning call, and I believe the other was a gathering call. On top of that, you had to wood knock to announce you were about to holler. The judges were set aside so they could not see the participants. You were solely judged off of your calls. What do you know, I ended up winning, beat my dad, and got asked to go out on a hunt with them. But I thought it was weird for a 14-year-old girl to go out in the woods with older men. You know what? Let's just go on a hunt and I'll show you everything I talked about. I mean, if you really think about it, Bigfoot is not so different from us humans. Just as we communicate with others, Bigfoot too needs to talk to his own kind. One form being wood knocking. This refers to the hitting of trees or sticks together, or as some presume, the claps of Bigfoot himself. At times, even incorporating the hollers with the knocks. Depending on the intensity of the knocks, or whether or not if a call was used with, these could mean a variety of things. Keeping track of others, seeing who else is in the proximity, or as a means of warning, are just some examples. If you are ever in the woods and hear such things, there is a chance you are not alone, and Bigfoot is nearby, so knock back. That concludes our episode on Bigfoot. This episode and podcast was produced by us, and the music was from our podcast's very own Connor. A special thanks to the Flatwoods Monster Museum. Do not worry, our journey of uncovering the truth about the creatures of West Virginia has only just begun. Make sure to keep your ears open and your eyes peeled, because you truly never know what's out there. Until next time, from Morgantown, West Virginia,
Cambria,
Camryn,
And Connor?
signing off.